Right, so Keir Starmer is to lies what day is to night. The sun is to the moon what Tom is to Jerry. He lies like a rug. But surprisingly, for a change, it isn't alternative media solely calling him out for his latest example of what would appear to be some rather rank dishonesty, which I'll come on to presently. But it's been made all the more surprising given the Tories are dominating the headlines at the moment with talk of their meat taxes and their 7 bins and coordinated industrial action by junior doctors and consultants as they continue to fail our health service, as what many have been reporting on as a sensible Brexit position to take for Starmer. His review or his rewrite of the deal has got some attention from them. His desire to get a better deal than we have now on trade, on national security, but absolutely no chance, you understand, of entering into the single market again or into a new customs union. So on the face of it, he was appealing to businesses and business leaders with this, who have complained about how bad the Brexit deal has been for them, a deal Starmer incidentally voted for. So there's the first bit of dishonesty to this story, just a snifter of it though, there's more to come. It'll be bitterly disappointing to those remainers, the FBPE hashtaggers, follow back pro-EU as that stands for, who have ardently supported him even while Corbyn was still leader, calling Corbyn a secret leaver and hailing Starmer as the second coming for EU membership. Well, it doesn't go nearly far enough for most of them. But of course, some are determined that he must be lying in order to deliver this, and we should support him because secretly he'll take us back in. But he doesn't want to be appealing to them now. He wants to be appealing to the Brexit leavers at this point. This is all Starmer's grand plan, according to them. Anyway, Labour, as we know, lost the red wall over their position on Brexit going into the 2019 general election, largely a situation Starmer, the then shadow Brexit secretary, had himself set up, calling for a second referendum with Remain as an option at the 2018 Labour conference and destroying his own party's electoral chances. His faction failed to regain power or control of the party in 2017. They found something to hurt Corbyn electorally in 2019, though, and so their little plot worked. And we know it was such a plot because Starmer dropped the topic of Brexit like a hot potato from the time he became Brexit leader up until now, really. So there's even more dishonesty in relation to all of this story. You know, one thing we don't talk about so much is what Corbyn's position actually was in 2018 before Starmer's act of sabotage. He was sitting on the fence, is what most people thought. He wasn't getting a great deal of coverage on such things either. The media far more fixated on destroying him in the interests of the establishment class, not really listening to what he had to say on stuff. However, not being in power, and with the Tories at each other's throats and completely divided, it seemed an unhelpful thing to come out with a bespoke position of Labour's own at that point. The Tories were being given enough rope to hang themselves, so to speak. So Starmer coming out onto stage with a Labour position subsequently ended up becoming an act of sabotage. But Corbyn did say the kind of deal his party would support should the Tories come forward with it. If you deliver a deal that includes a customs union and no hard border in Ireland, if you protect jobs, people's rights at work and environmental and consumer standards, then we will support that sensible deal. That's what Corbyn said. That was basically Labour's actual true position. But sure, to some he was a rabid leaver and they won't hear a word of it. He put forward a sensible option with widespread support that ended the years of debate we were all sick and tired of for the Tories to deliver, and they failed utterly to do so. So that's what brings us up to the here and now anyway. But for all of Starmer's self-serving switching between Remain being on a ballot and delivering on the Brexit deal he voted through but now wants to tweak, there has, courtesy of Sky, been a bit of footage leaked out from 2020 as it happens, a trip to Canada that Starmer had taken that might imply the FBPE crowd hoping for another Starmer lie on Europe, a lie regarding possibly taking us back in as a consequence, could well be onto something, and that rejoining might actually be on the cards for Team Keith. So this story is a case that Starmer was in Montreal in 2020 at a conference of supposedly centre-left leaders. So frankly, what Starmer was doing there, I've no idea. But it was 2020, still early days into his own premiership. People were still giving him the benefit of the doubt. It was September of 2020. And he was sat there on stage with the Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store, and he was asked a question on relations with the EU by a certain John McTernan, who comes up in conversation on some of my videos now and again. And if you aren't aware of the guy by now, he was a former advisor to Tony Blair. He was the strategist that saw Labour lose Scotland, and also the Australian Labour Party of Julia Gillard lose as well. The fact he was there, though, and got to ask Starmer a question no less, would, if this had been reported at the time, been a klaxon warning to the left. But this was Starmer's response, which is relevant in terms of what he's saying about his plans for a future relationship with the EU. He said, most of the conflict with the UK being outside of the UK, he meant EU, fluffed his words, arises insofar as the UK wants to diverge and do different things to the rest of our EU partners. Obviously, the more we share values, the more we share a future together, the less the conflict. And actually, different ways of solving problems become available. Actually, we don't want to diverge. We don't want to lower standards. We don't want to rip up environmental standards, working standards for people that work, food standards, and all the rest of it. So suddenly, you're in a space where, notwithstanding the obvious fact that we're outside the EU and not in the EEA, the European Economic Area, there's a lot more common ground than you might think. So Starmer is saying there that most of the conflict we have with the EU regarding the UK now being outside of it is down to the UK wanting to diverge from the EU further. Certainly the mentality and the narrative of a lot of Tories. And he's saying that he and his party don't want to diverge, don't want to lower standards, and implies the common ground is there for that to happen. Sounds very much like he does want a closer relationship with the EU, or certainly did back in 2020, before much of the damage from Brexit, it can be argued, was really being felt. We now are definitely feeling it. The food shortages, the cost of living crisis, the trade barriers, the screw-ups in relation to Northern Ireland being out but still in. So if Keir Starmer felt like he said before we became embroiled in all of that mess, by how much is he seeking to not diverge further from the EU now, in which case? For the record, I voted Remain. I didn't trust the Tories one iota to deliver anything in our interests, and as much as the EU was imperfect in a great many ways, they provided a check on our government, which I felt was very, very important. But if Starmer is plotting a much closer future relationship with the EU based on past comments he's made on video, because there's always a receipt when it comes to him, social media always keeps a record after all, he gets caught out time after time for being a big fat fibber. Who would trust him not to, in light of this video footage Sky have unearthed, not seek a closer relationship with the EU after all? That could even include a single market and customs union. Maybe that's something you would quite like after all. It would certainly solve a lot of problems currently being felt, and certainly a great deal of those FBPE crowd would love to see it. My issue is, if that is actually what he is planning, why is it he always has to take the road of dishonesty in order to promote anything or do anything? Why is it he cannot ever make the case for something, a positive case? He is just an overarching aura of negativity at all times. And the answer to that is he's running scared of the right-wing media. He's been licking Rupert Murdoch's boots for months. His retirement will be coming as a blow to Team Keith, I'm sure. And many of those publications were Brexit supporting. Equally, he wants the red wall seats Labour lost back, who went Tory because they wanted to leave the EU. They voted for Brexit. Many blaming Europe for their hardships. I would hope many had learnt now it was really the Tories, since things have only become worse, and that rancid party is the cause of so much damage in this country. But when Starmer can't be straight with us about his true intentions on anything, seemingly ever, can you really believe him when he says no to the single market and customs union? And even if he really truly means it in his heart of hearts, assuming he has one, the EU will want an incentive to reopen talks of that magnitude that go far beyond the planned 2025 review. So what would he offer though, in which case? And why is that not being asked or spoken about? What do you think? Is this another example of Starmer pulling a fast one on us? Has he been plotting to go back in all this time and now is his chance, or is it all a cynical ploy just for votes? Would you want to go back in? Have you changed your mind? And if so, what do you think Starmer should be saying? Or are you still happy we left? And if that is the case, what do you make of Starmer in light of this story? Do let me know in the comments below and be part of the conversation on this. I always take an interest. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please do like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Well, here's a video recommendation where the Tories are running scared of their own Brexit inquiry. Now, I can't imagine why that would be. And does this provide Starmer with incentive for what he's saying now? Well, I don't know. You tell me. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.